Porn in the woods is a thing. It is. And it occurs more often than you could ever imagine. I mean, think about all the porn that you believe is found in the woods on a daily basis, and then times that number by 100, and you might come close to what the actual national average is. Okay? For a young man, finding porn in the woods is an age-old tradition that's been going on for centuries. It's like cycles of the moon or global warming, okay? I can say with great confidence that every single man in this room has a story about finding porn in the woods. But this is mine. I was in the 2nd grade, and already I was no stranger to danger when it came to boobs. Okay? I'd seen a titty or two on the nudie calendar that hung in my uncle's body shop. Plus, we had Cinemax, so I could sneak a peek when I wasn't being directly supervised. So as far as what was going on below the equator in Ladyland, well, I was in the dark about that. And I'm not talking about Bush either, okay? I had seen Bush. I'm talking about the beast within. Whatever it was that lurked just below those sexy, curly, bountiful tufts had managed to elude me. Until today. My best friend Jonathan and I were playing in his backyard, as was our daily custom. And due to the frequency in which we engaged with each other, it stands to reason that a lot of firsts happened for me at his house. Plus, our only form of supervision came in the form of his hapless preteen sister who gave exactly no fucks what we were doing or where we were. I made my first prank phone call at Jonathan's house. I listened to Weird Al Yankovic for the very first time. We watched Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time and wholeheartedly regretted it over the next 2 nightmare-filled, sleepless weeks. We even got a kitten together that we kept at his house. It was the very first pet I ever had. It died 3 days later after we got it from feline leukemia. I was unable to be present for the burial. Okay, so that last first kind of sucked. But there was one particular first that certainly did not suck. We were playing around in the backyard, and we decided on a whim to jump the fence and cross the small wooded area that backed up to the local grocery store. Now, this wasn't out of the ordinary for us, since we often went there to play video games or waste our money on stupid shit. However, what we happened upon in this particular outing was quite out of the ordinary for us. We were both just looking down at it for, gosh, I don't know how long. It could have been minutes, it could have been hours. I mean, the passage of time is hard to judge at that age. I'm not sure if we were each waiting for the other to pick it up first, or we were lulled into this hypnotic trance by what we were seeing. The object responsible for hijacking our attention was a cherry magazine, partially covered in leaves and dirt. This was huge. I mean, this was truly a huge score for 2 young men such as ourselves. Our mounting courage peaked, and we both reached for the sparkling gem at the same time. I must have been a touch quicker, because suddenly I was holding in my hand the magazine, brushing dirt from the crinkled cover. Jonathan leaned in close as I slowly opened it and adjusted to give him an equally good view. The first picture was of a woman in lacy red negligee, with the top pulled down to her stomach so as to adequately display her ample breasts. Ah, good old reliable, familiar, safe boobs. Now, just because I had seen boobs before didn't make them any less awesome to see them, and I found myself transfixed by their very magnificence until Jonathan started elbowing me in the ribs. Dude, turn the page, he said, almost pleadingly. I snapped out of it, slapped the page over, and as my mind began to try and process what I was seeing, I was a bit confused. It was the same woman, but now she was lying on a heart-shaped bed with a lacy bedspread that matched her negligee. Her top was still pulled down, don't worry. But the red panties she wore on the page prior were gone. Her legs were spread wide open, and her curly, soft mound of mystery had been shaved into what I would later come to know as a landing strip. Without the shroud of mystery I had become accustomed to, I found myself face to face with the elusive human vagina in all of its biological glory. When I first saw the moist pink and red flaps of skin being elegantly held apart by the woman's fingers, I thought she had been injured. I mean, look, as far as I knew, you were not supposed to see that far inside of a person. Had she been shot? Maybe this charity magazine was less about naked ladies and more about hunting the most dangerous game at all. Man. I guess Jonathan was as shocked as I was because neither of us said a word. Despite the trepidation over what I was currently seeing, I slowly turned the page. Now, the next picture did nothing to assuage my fears that this poor woman had somehow been injured in her private areas. Screaming up at us from the page was an insanely extreme close-up of what looked like a walrus that had been blasted in the face point blank with a shotgun. The only indication that what I was looking at was human was the woman's 2 fingers, which were still in the shot as she pulled herself even wider. This was it. This was the big show. I was a far cry from my safe and comfortable bastion over in Titty Town. This was my introduction to Vaginaville. As the initial shock wore off, I began to study the dripping, wet, pink flaps and folds upon folds of secret flesh that had been kept hidden from me by Bush until this very moment. Soon my head started to swim. I felt like I might pass out. The tiniest bit of blood had just begun to rush to my prepubescent penis when we heard a rustling behind us. Jonathan took off running back to the direction of his house. I took one last look into the mouth of madness before dropping the magazine and running after him. We didn't stop until we had climbed the fence and we were back in his bedroom, where we listened to Weird Al, and we didn't discuss what we had just seen. Okay, so we did end up going back to look at the magazine a few more times over the next couple weeks. But then one day it was gone, thus concluding our anatomy lesson for the time being. I'm sure some older kids found it, took it home to add to their large collection of porno that I believed every older kid had. But still, part of me likes to think that that magazine knew that it had fulfilled its purpose with us. And it flew off to another part of the woods where it could be found by other young boys to help guide them to the path of manhood. Sure, I went on to find some more porn in the woods that I could tell you all about. Tons, in fact. But nothing beats your first time